it's one of those just, I would say, perfect sports, because it has great demand, at the same time great challenge, and it's unstructured and unformulaic on the courses. And I think that's why it's growing so much and there's such an explosion, because of that purity.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 169 of the show.
Nice. We are graced with greatness this week on the show. Joining us is legendary triathlon coach and founder of Purple Patch Fitness, Matt Dixon. We're serious. He's our guest this week. We made it happen.
We made it happen. This was an awesome conversation about training, life, and balance, and we can't wait to share it with you.
But first, training update. Cue the air horn. Chris has made it back in the pool.
I know.
The Low Tide Boys are back in all facets of Swimrun. So swim and run. He's reported it wasn't pretty, but we're back to our regularly scheduled full-on training. So very excited about that with Ben's Sun River Swimrun coming up in just a few short weeks.
More like Ice River.
Ice River is Sun. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it's there. On to this week's Shoutout.
This week's shout-out goes out to Andy Shirting. Keep this name in mind because it's going to come up later in the show. He recently donated to our Wild Swimrun Wild Youth Initiative fundraiser, and we really appreciate his support to help get more women and girls into the sport of swimrun. By the way, Wild Swimrun just had their first camp.
I was just going to say that.
In several years on the island of Mallorca, where yours truly had his honeymoon. It was lovely. It's amazing.
You didn't invite me to that.
No. But they had their first event. It looked great. Good. It sold out. They had gear for everyone. Super supportive environment. And yeah, it looked like an awesome weekend.
So head on over to their Instagram to check that out too. They had a lot of great photos. They do the media right there for the Wild Swimrun. Now to this week's Wisdom Nugget of the Week. Always do what you are afraid to do. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah. So the idea with this one is kind of like, hey man, if you're afraid to do something, that's probably what you should be heading towards. Like if, you got to climb that mountain, you got to go do it. You're afraid of Atala. It's exactly what you should be setting your sights on.
That's what you should be signing up for.
Yeah.
I like it. And it is, and I think people, we talked about, not to get too much into foreshadowing, but we talked about leaning into our weaknesses and leaning into strengths and when to do each of that. And I think that's you might be afraid to lean into whatever your weakness is. Maybe it's swimming, maybe it's running, maybe it's, doing your yoga practice or your strength, whatever it is. But Ralph has us with the solid nugget of the week. Now on to this week's Feats of Endurance. This week's winner is Tony Portillo. He ran the Hat 50K in Maryland over the weekend as what he has self-described as a glorious, muddy conditions. He took over an hour and 20 minutes off his 50K personal best. Nice work, Tony.
Pretty good.
I think those are the only conditions.
Like how muddy was the first time he did it or something?
Yeah, it must have been a kayak.
It's not gloriously muddy.
Absolutely. Bonus points, bonus award this week goes to friend of the pod, Will Ramsey, for running the Terrapin Mountain 50K a few weeks ago. Beastly looking course, over 7,000 feet of climbing over the 31 miles, way to be.
Yeah.
Do you think he made it to Terrapin Station at the top of the Terrapin Mountain? All right. Make sure you sign up for the Low Tide Boys Strava Club. Join all the fun in there. Get kudos. Get a shout out. And most importantly, have fun. Now, over to the news desk for This Week in Swimrun.
All right, before we get to the news, we have a special race director report.
Love it. First one of the year, too.
First one of the year from our friend and race director of EX Swimrun, Nicholas Roman, with a preview of their 2023 events. Take it away, Nicholas.
Hi guys, it's Nicholas here from the EX Swimrun, giving you a little shout out with some information about the upcoming EX Swimrun weekend on May 27th and May 28th. Now we're going to do, as always, we kick it off with the ARC Super Sprint. That's on May 27th. And that's our new concept with this super fast 100% lactic acid party elimination heat sort of ski cross version of Swimrun. And we have some really big names signed up this year. We have reigning two-time champion Desiree Andersson. She's back, of course. She sort of has a subscription, I guess, on that crown. But we're going to see if somebody can dethrone her this year. And we have some big names signed up on the women's side. And then we have, on the male side, we have Mathieu, we have William Evans, we have a couple other people coming from abroad. But we also have some big Swedish names. I'm not going to disclose all of them, but we have, which is really cool, two wild cards. We have Josefin Lillhage, which is one of Sweden's best swimmers, with an Olympic silver medal under her belt. And then we have Simon Sjödin, who's also an Swedish Olympic swimmer, apparently a powerhouse in the water, so that's going to be really exciting to see. So the deal is everybody turns up on May 27th, and then we have a look, and you sort of enjoy the fact that you're not actually doing this super sprint, because that is a brutal race, but it's awesome to watch. And if you can't make it here to Edsviken, you just log into our website. We're going to do a live broadcast this year. We're actually going to do it properly this year, so don't worry, you can check out the races on May 27th on exswimrun.se. And then on May 28th, which is the Sunday, the day after, that's the big race day for everybody else. We're doing two races this year. We didn't think one was enough, so we did it double up. So we're doing a 14-kilometer EX Swimrun short, which is a race around Edsviken. And it's 14 kilometers, but it has a swim factor of over 22%. So there's like 3 kilometers of swimming in that race. And then we have the EX23 long, which is 23 kilometers with about 5K swimming. So there's a sweep of about 21%. And that's what we're going for here at EX. We want to put the swim back into Swimrun. So at least 20% swimming in our races. For all the swimmers out there, come to EX, do some running, but do a lot of swimming as well. And we're going to do it like last year. We're going to do the pursuit start on the EX long. We're going to do the Falcon Mountain base jump. We have a sponsor this year, so there's going to be some prizes for best jumps. We saw Lelle Olsson last year doing the shrimp, 6 meters up. But I think we're going to see some really cool jumps this year. So just a shout out. It'd be great if a lot of people turned up. We have about 115 signed up already. We're aiming for about 200 participants, which is going to be one of the biggest races that we've seen in the last couple of years outside of Ötö. And it's on May 27th, ARC Super Sprint. May 28th, EX23 long, EX23 short. And it's basically just a swim run party. We're going to have beer, we're going to have food, we're going to have a DJ, and it's just going to be a really, really cool weekend. So if you can make it to Sollentuna, Edsviken, just outside of Stockholm, you're welcome. Right now, it's pretty thick ice on the lake, and there's snow everywhere, and it's -2, but we will be swimming and running in about 2 months' time. So start training for the EX Swimrun. And if you're not doing swimming and running training, start jumping. Start doing some jump training for the jump, because you're going to need it to keep all your gear together. So, nice talking to you guys, and I'll see you hopefully on May 27th, 28th at the EX Swimrun. Have a great one.
All I have to say, best slogan in Swimrun, EX Swimrun, putting the swim back into Swimrun.
It makes sense. In fact, it's first.
It's first.
It's back and first. So nice work on that. This sounds like a fun weekend. The swimrun weekend. Beer, swimrun multiple days, a sprint course, and then a few different long courses, plus some crazy cliff jumping and diving contests, all sorts of stuff.
I mean, what I love is just the enthusiasm he's bringing
absolutely
to swimrun and to the community. I mean, it's great.
I love to hear that it will be televised as well on the internet, so I will be sure to tune into that, so that will be awesome to see.
Indeed. Now for the news. Let's start off with the bummer department. In our last This Week in Swimrun, we shared a new race announcement for the Swimrun Whistler. We're very excited about that. Well, fast forward a few weeks, and now we're sharing that race has been postponed until 2024. Not exactly sure what happened. Something about permits or I don't know what. But
It's always the permits.
It's always the permits. But so it's a bummer. Stay tuned for that in 2024. While Swimrun is indeed a roller coaster of emotions because we have a new race alert to share. Swimrun Cape Cod is a new event taking place on Cape Cod in Wellfleet, Massachusetts. This is a point-to-point race through some of the inland ponds in that area, and it looks great. The race date is September 16th, and they're offering 2 distance options, a short course and a super short course for both teams and solo athletes. A long course, they're planning on a long course in 2024. If that wasn't enough, sign up and use the code LOWTIDE, LOWTIDE, to save 20% off of your registration. They're limiting registrations to only 100 participants because they want to make sure this is their first swim run that they're doing.
Nice.
They've done a bunch of triathlons, and this is Andy, who we mentioned up top. He it's a nonprofit. They're putting on these events to help the local community. And hey, we're still net +1 on swim runs in the Western Hemisphere.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
In North America. And if I'm not mistaken, also you may have heard the SOS Triathlon. That's one of their ones they race direct as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So that was a swim, bike, run, but you kind of would have to carry your shoes. So he's going all in. On the swim run.
And the race looks great. The race looks great. So check that out. Now, over in the UK, Swimrun Coniston announced their 2023 race date. The full and sprint course events will take place on September 24th in what they're calling a, quote, wild and rugged UK landscape of Coniston. Now, we believe that the courses will be similar to the now defunct Brecca race that used to take place in that area. At least that's what about 35 seconds of internet research.
That's what our intel's telling us.
That's what it's telling us, our crack research department. Staying in the UK, the original Welsh swimrun, Love Swimruns Llanberis, is scheduled for June 17th and will offer a 6K sprint course and a 16K long course. According to their website, both courses are tough. So make sure you check that out. Now, if you happen to be in UK a week before Swimrun Llanberis, head on over to Neen Park in Peterborough in Cambridgeshire, which is my favorite area of England, I think.
The Shire?
Cambridgeshire in particular, for As Keen as Mustard's event on June 10th and 11th, offering everything from an intro-friendly 5K to a sporty 39K swimrun distance option. Now, Chipper, you're going to love this. They've changed the names for their distances, so the 39K event is called the Hot Mustard Distance.
Oh.
And I know you're here for it.
I'm definitely there for it, and if there's mustard on course as a fueling option, I'm also there for it.
Definitely.
And we chatted with mother-daughter team As Keen as Mustard, so be sure to check that out as well. Nikki and Chelsea Bailey.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking for other swimrun events to race, check out the UK-based swimrun.com's race calendar that breaks down events by country. It's a pretty comprehensive guide. John and Fred are doing an awesome job building out their website. It's chock full of great content for beginners and seasoned swimrunners alike, so make sure you check that out.
Yeah, they're doing good things over there, swimrun.com.
Yeah, and we're not just saying that because they gave us an award.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Finally, if you're looking for a swimrun partner and wish there was an app to help you find someone, some of you might remember us talking about a Tinder for swimrun app called Swimder all the way back in episode 4, Chipper.
Wow.
Actually went back to check, and I was like, oh my God, it was almost embarrassing listening to that stuff. Anyway, we thought someone should develop that app because we're not going to do that. Well, anyway, fast forward 3 years, and Nicholas Ramirez of Envol Coaching, the swimrun matchmaker himself, is doing just that. Luckily, it's called Swimrun Connect and not Swimder. But you can check out his GoFundMe campaign because they're helping to crowdsource the new app that is being developed. And interestingly, they're using developers from the Ukraine. So they're trying to, send some work down that way.
Nice.
So it looks pretty cool. They need help getting it off the ground. So if you're so inclined, go check that out. That's it for this week. Reach out to us if there's any swimrun news that you'd like for us to share on the show.
Now for a little bit of show business. So make sure you head on over to our YouTube channel. We just dropped a hot new video, how to train for swimrun. But we have a new video this week all about the pull buoy simple mount. We explain why the setup is ideal for this, for swimrun. And we include DIY instructions, how to make your own, and how to use it. And most importantly, why it's so simple.
Yeah, it's spoiler alert.
It's simple. Spoiler alert, it's simple. But the videos keep on coming. So subscribe, over on YouTube, and those are great ones to share out with your friends who are wanting to join the Swimrun fun. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into our conversation with Matt Dixon, founder of Purple Patch Fitness.
Yeah, it was really great to catch up with Matt. We have a long history with Purple Patch Fitness. Chipper was a coachee, and I worked with Matt when I was with Golden Gate Tri Club, and it was really fun to chat with Daddy Dixon, as he's lovingly called, about his athletic roots, his evolving coaching philosophy, swimrun training, and so much more. Chipper, I think you'll agree this is definitely get your notepads out.
I was going to say we need an air raid siren, knowledge carpet bombing coming through on this one. Brace yourselves, people.
Yes, this was a great conversation, and we just thank Matt for taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have Matt on, and we've had his stooges, maybe as
his underlings.
His underlings. Stooges is not a great word. Coach Mike O, John Stevens, even Matt Hurley was a former Purple Patch Fitness coach. Right. So you've heard the methodologies and thinking of Purple Patch Fitness for a while on the show, but now you get to hear from Daddy himself, the source himself. So yeah, just a really, really great combo.
It was a good
we had a good time with Matt, and yeah, thanks again for the time, and a really cool offer at the end. So if you're in and around or in the vicinity of the Bay Area, Matt has a really cool offer for a free trip into the Purple Patch Fitness
training
center for a free session, whether that be a bike ride or a treadmill, a TRX thing with Coach Mike O on the house. Just mentioned the Low Tide Boys.
He kind of made it sound like he's going to buy you a beer, but he's going to buy you you getting your ass kicked for about an
90
hour
minutes in the pain cave. They also have the Precision Fuel and Hydration sweat test center there. So you could go there, get your sweat checked out, get your sweat on, get your sweat checked out. You can probably knock out a lot of sweat-related things in the Performance Center. So go check that out. But now we're just dragging on to our combo with Matt Dixon, founder of Purple Patch Fitness. Who's your daddy?
Okay, I mean, what can we say? We have the founder and head coach of Purple Patch Fitness with us, Matt Dixon. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm excited to see what we're going to dig into.
Well, we've had some of your other coaches, and none of them have talked shit about you, so I think that's a really good start. We've both have known you for a super long time. Lovingly, every time you come up in conversation, it's like, oh, Daddy Dixon? You're talking about Daddy? So we'd love to just introduce, for anyone who doesn't know about Purple Patch Fitness, can you tell us a little bit sort of the origin story of how that started and how you've sort of developed your philosophy, your coaching philosophy over the years?
Yeah, actually, out of Purple Patch emerged from a pit of failure, and but I'll make it pretty brief. But my background's swimming, actually, originally. So I'm obviously English, but have lived in the States for 30 years, and I was one of those international swimmers that got to come across and swim on scholarship, which was terrific experience. Nice. And my educational background is clinical physiology, exercise physiology, and it was while I was studying that I got into this sport, triathlon. And I took the classic proverbial swimmer's mindset, hell for leather, hard work, and I applied that. And I thought, goodness me, when I was trying to make the Olympic team, I was training 25 hours a week to get ready for a 2-minute event. How many hours a week do you have to train for an Ironman? And with the help of some very bad coaching, I literally just threw the volume playbook at my training with some very poor supporting habits, under recovery, not eating enough to support the training demands, etc., and drove myself into the ground, ended up with chronic fatigue. And the only reason I kick it off with that is that ended my pro career and set off, I would say, a couple of years of a pretty dark phase of my life. But it was in that phase of my life that caused some real reflection. And I had my backbone of a master's degree in physiology. I'd coached swimming at a Division I level already, and obviously had a swimming career. And I self-reflected, but then looked at the sport. And this was late 90s, early 2000s, looked at triathlon, and all I saw at the elite level and at the amateur level was huge symptoms of underperformance. People that were not getting a return on investment on their training time. And I just saw people, as I like to say, fit and fatigued. And so I was really determined to go about things in a different way. And so I was very lucky. I started to coach some elite amateur and professional triathletes. And we had a philosophy that was very much against the grain of the culture of the time, where we put on an equal pedestal components like recovery, like nutrition, and said that's as much of a part of the program as endurance training is. And that was really the kickstart of a methodology that, is now 15 years of Purple Patch. And we've had some pretty decent results along the way, leveraging that mindset and methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. And we worked together. I was a Purple Patch athlete for my first Ironman. I was thinking about it in the pool this morning, 2014. So that would put us in 9 years ago. Whew, that's
goodness me.
Yeah, I know, really. And yeah, I think at the time when I remember doing research around coaches, and it was still a little bit bleeding into like volume. And it was like, oh, there's a recovery coach. That was some sort of tagline that you had acquired for yourself. But that has since evolved now. And I really like the philosophy you have now about the time-starved athlete, because I feel that's everybody. Whether you're doing a 5K or you're doing some ultra running or whatever the sport is, but everyone's busy. You got your family, you got a demanding work job, and then you're trying to somehow get shoehorn some training in there, some runs, swims, bikes, whatever you're doing. How did you kind of make your evolution from that recovery coach to the time-starved athlete now, and keeping that balanced approach as well that you have?
I'm really glad that you bring up that nickname or sort of title that I managed to earn, the recovery coach, because that was not given to me in a positive sense.
Oh no!
That was actually a label that I earned from people actually misunderstanding what I was really preaching. I was doing a lot of writing at the time for the publications, the sports publications, talking about the importance of recovery and how some people took that on board, that it was really that I was selling a shortcut to success, a quick fix, almost like quackery in a way. And it was actually the antithesis of that. And I think this is important. In order for us to achieve, whether you're going to the Swimrun World Championships, whether you're trying to qualify to the Hawaii Ironman, the Boston Marathon, whatever it is that you're looking to do, taking on a big personal challenge requires commitment. And it's very challenging and it's hard work. And there's no way to shortcut that. But the key is that in order for any athlete to be successful, they need to create a recipe that establishes sustainable high performance for themselves. And so consistency is the magic word. And under there's lots of different ways to skin a cat, different sessions that you could do. And that's not really where the magic is. And so what recovery does is it is actually an important tool to embrace as a means to do more. And what I mean by more is more effective training consistently over months that ultimately yields great success. And so when I go back to the Purple Patch Pro Squad, I don't coach pro athletes quite as much anymore. But when we were really operating a pro squad, one of the things I was really proud of was our consistency of results and our long-term development. Some of our athletes that we coached for 10 years, going from amateur to world class, etc. So that's where the recovery coach came from. And then if we extend that into time-starved athletes, and as you say, Chippy, you're exactly right. It doesn't matter what the sport is. We're all sort of busily juggling lots of stresses that we must navigate across all aspects of our life: work commitments, family, kids, travel for work, hopefully some downtime, etc. And the body, as it as it pertains to stress, the body isn't very good at differentiating different sources of stress, physical or emotional, and they can accumulate. And now what we're looking to do is to apply a specific stress training and yield positive adaptations from it. And so when it's working with a time-starved athlete, we need to be highly cognizant that life is not a spreadsheet. It's not static. So it simply doesn't work if you take some pre-planned, canned, programmed off the shelf that mythically says you need to train X number of hours or X number of miles or swim X number of meters, and then ram it in and say, okay, Chipper, now check the box of this and it's going to be successful, because that training stress on any different week might not actually be the correct training, deliver the right training response. So we need to create a program that's dynamic and also attacks the challenge from the other side. It integrates into your life. So rather than saying, Chipper, 2014, you're doing Ironman, here's 20 hours, work out how to do it. Instead, build a program where you can manage and moderate. And for any athlete, that might be that the appropriate training hours are some weeks 8 hours, some weeks 12, some weeks 10. But the key is that when you layer those weeks and weeks and weeks into months and months and months, suddenly you show up to the race with a really good library of training that your body has been able to absorb and adapt to, and you're fitter, but you're also fresh. And that's where you see really good performance results.
You know, we have a friend of the show, Brad Stolberg, who's also been on your podcast, which is an excellent podcast in case anyone hasn't checked it out yet, Purple Patch Podcast. You know, he talks about the growth equation, right? Stress plus rest equals growth. And the analogy for that is everywhere, whether it's business, life, athletics. And I really see a lot of that in sort of in your methodology where you have, okay, here's your A workouts, here's your B workouts, here's your C. If you can get them all in, amazing, congratulations. But if you can't, make sure you hit the A workouts. And if you can get to the B ones, I mean, can you explain kind of like where did that sort of concept come from? Because it's almost seems like it's ubiquitous and it's like the standard. But 10 years ago, that definitely was not the case.
I remember Brad when he was just a puppy. Goodness me!
I know he's got his big boy pants. He was just a puppy
when I met Brad, but he's really developed in a fantastic resource, obviously.
Sure,
yeah.
And he and his good mate Steve Magnus as well. When they were writing their book on performance, I remember sitting in my kitchen having a fantastic discussion about recovery and about performance. That I have the greatest respect for both of them. So it's a great question, Chris. And I think it's important when we discuss this for the listeners to realize that a whole bunch of training to be effective actually doesn't need to be that difficult. And I think that one of the key mistakes that many people make is that they build a relationship with training of that no pain, no gain mentality, which is, you know, we should take a sledgehammer to sayings like that because it's a myth. In fact, particularly if you're time starved, a lot of the training in general should have two roles for you. In any given week, you're going to identify 2 to 3 workouts that I like to say are specifically designed to move the performance needle. So whether it's over distance, whether it's high intensity, whether it's a combination of both of those are the workouts that are going to be really challenging. And those workouts demand that the athlete shows up for, is present, is hopefully got enough willpower and physical resources to give themselves credit, go and work really hard. Then other workouts are more supportive in nature. And there's a physical side to this and an emotional side to it. The physical side of it is some of the low intensity exercise delivers a lot of really important physiological conditioning, cardiovascular conditioning, muscular endurance, etc., but is at a low enough intensity that they don't have a negative imprint on upcoming key workouts. So you're getting a lot of benefit from them. They're really important, but they're not actually pulling down the performance in those sessions that are there for the performance needle. But on top of that as well, when you're really busy, if we take a typical training program, they often look like chicken casserole, where each individual workout might be good, but when you look at it together, there's no differentiation. And so you're disabling an athlete from having any autonomy to understand when they should really push and challenge themselves and when they should back off. So it becomes a grind. And what occurs over weeks on weeks is there's a cliff erosion effect of fatigue accumulation because every workout is challenging. When you have a really sort of hierarchy in your weekly training and you have 2 or 3 workouts that you really know you're going to go and crack on at, the other workouts can not only have that supportive nature that we talked about, they can also play a really important role in the fabric of your life management, your stress management, because those can actually have it's almost like a pressure relief valve on life. Mm-hmm. Go out and enjoy it and have that mental detox. It enables you to be more sociable, lower intensity. You're still getting loads of benefit, but they actually should be there as a circulating blood, refreshed when you finish the session, etc. And that becomes really, really helpful. I call these workouts quite often soul fillers. And that helps athletes understand what we're trying to get out of them and actually equips them with the bravery to go easy. Purple Patch would like to say you have to have courage to recover. Well, this is a part of it. And sometimes I say if you order a lamp on Amazon, and that lamp is a beautiful lamp, in order for it to arrive, it needs to be surrounded with a whole bunch of pack filler. And it's a really important role to play, because if you just put it in the box and then the quality of that lamp is going to be not very good when it shows up because it'll be in pieces. And so instead, like, think about sessions like that, and that really equips, because then you protect the integrity of the key workouts. And the lever that you have relative to life is you might do all of those supporting workouts. You might have to reduce the duration of some of them or pull any intensity that you might have if life is really flowing and stresses are up. Or if life ebbs a little bit, you can do more. And if you have the opportunity to do more and positively adapt, you should do that. And so it becomes a really good management tool for coaches and athletes to sort of really build I would say, a more strategic program that can mesh with all of the chaos of life that we have.
Yeah, that's such a great approach, and it's not easy to nail. A lot of what we hear about, especially when we talk to different coaches, is there's too much happening in this gray area of like not easy enough, but also not hard enough. Is that something that you see a lot with your athletes?
Yeah, exactly. They and that becomes that there emerges from that a confidence erosion. Because they're never doing things that are sort of really validating. They have less breakout events, and the sport itself, whatever the sport is, becomes a little bit of a monkey on the back, because each session is kind of hard, and that's just a grind. And the body doesn't like monotony; it likes to have variance, and practically, it's just way more fun. That if you really go and hit it hard on a day, that you're like, okay, tomorrow, my sole purpose here is to actually go out and feel better. And that's one where if you were going for a jog, you could go out and run with a buddy and just talk about whatever you want to talk about,
Swimrun?
I don't know.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, exactly. The Swimrun podcast that you listen to, or Nicki Minaj, or whoever Chip is into nowadays.
That's my second favorite. That's my second go. How do you have my playlist?
Okay. Yeah. I do want to point out, Chris, by the way, when Chip did his Ironman, his hair was much shorter than it is now.
That's
so
true.
I don't have any challenges putting it under the swim cap.
That's true. Yeah, it's a big
me
problem
and swim
now.
caps have quite a relationship now. It's a whole thing.
Is it a love-hate relationship?
Yeah,
More like
it's a lot.
hate. It's funny that you mentioned, I kind of want to steer this more towards Swimrun, Matt, because, the challenges of Swimrun are in some ways unique, but in some ways it's the same challenges as you mentioned, whether you're trying to qualify for the World Championship in the 5K or 50 miler, you still have to, all these things you need to juggle, all these different stimulus that you need to get in order to perform well. And I know Purple Patch, I mean, you have, again, we've had a couple coaches on, John Stevens, Mike Lozinski, we've had them on multiple times to try to give us some insight into what swim run training at its sort of optimal form should look like. And I'm curious, here, so you're at the head of that pyramid. When you think about, when someone comes here like, I want to train for swim run and I want to do this at a high level, kind of what's your first reaction to that, and how would you structure a program for the athlete, time starved or whatever, that's really just trying to excel in particularly in swim run?
Is it an appropriate answer to say it depends? That's not very
Definitely.
helpful, is it? So I'll do my best to build up. So let me start with this first, and I think you said it really eloquently. It is a unique sport with very specific demands and culture, I would say, and challenge. At the same time, it's not unique. There are still some when you really strip it down to basics, and let's just remove for the moment the sort of team aspect to it, the sort of doing it with pairs, and let's just talk about it as a sort of global event. There's cardiovascular conditioning, there's muscular endurance, there's a nutrition and fueling component, there's being able to establish form under fatigue with pacing, etc. And you're going to have to navigate a whole bunch of adversity along the way, and that's problem solving. And in fact, if it's one of those just, I would say, perfect sports, because it has great demand and at the same time great challenge, and it's unstructured and unformulaic on the courses. And I think that's why it's growing so much and there's such an explosion because of that purity. One of my challenges I have with Ironman racing, and knowing that I love the sport of triathlon, etc., is that it's a very standard distance that's always the same, and there's almost a race to the bottom on course design. Faster, mundane. Suddenly you've got athletes
Everything
that have to go to
downhill.
Texas and ride on a toll road. It's like, well, Chipper, if I could use that fork on your table, I'd stab myself in the thigh with it. There's not personality. But I know that's not the question. It's just a framing of a perspective around swimrun as a challenge. So I think the first thing that there's two or three things that I will say. The first is that whenever you're building a training program for anyone, there are a few fundamentals that I think are important. The first is under the umbrella of a saying that we say at Purple Patch: embrace the journey. Too many athletes think about a specific race that they've got coming up and just drive towards that race. And instead, it's really important for the athlete to meet themselves where they are currently at. And we've got two main disciplines here, and break them apart. And so you break them apart to three components, which is, where am I at with my swimming and what do I need to do to improve that side of things? Where am I at with my running? And then where am I at with sport-specific, hybrid, and bringing them around? And there's some skill acquisition, there's logistics, there's transitions and things like that. And so building the program from the ground up of where they're at currently and build it on there. Number two is, while it is important to address weaknesses, in general, it's better to build on strengths. So if you're a great swimmer, you want to make it. It's not that you focus all of your energy on becoming a swimmer, but don't bypass. I think one of the things that people do is that they are so worried about addressing weaknesses in their sport that they forget to exploit the strengths. And I think it becomes a really important component to actually exploit your strengths and then bring up the weaknesses in parallel to that. A third thing I would say is that the big performance enhancer, the free performance enhancer, well, there are two free great performance enhancers that are legal. Number one is sleep. Number two is strength and conditioning. And under strength and conditioning, I think swim run is a really important component, because heavier load strength and conditioning, upper body and lower body, it improves your economy as an athlete. But in swim run, I think it's really specific around being able to retain form under fatigue. So holding good posture, synchronization and coordination of movements. And the more that you can dial in the connection between brain and muscle and strengthen the movement coordination, the synchronization, when your body starts to get fatigued over the duration of the event, you've got a much higher likelihood of being able to retain good foot placement, good swim stroke, good force under the water. So I think that strength is really underrelated. I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question there, but I'll pause in case otherwise this will become a monologue.
No, I think that's great. I think, yeah, I mean, that's it. For me, it's a little bit of a revelation because, you know, not this in terms of therapy for myself, but Chipper's a stronger swimmer than me. So I've spent, you know, basically a whole year just trying to work on my swim. Wasn't neglecting the run by any means, but to think of, but I think almost like implicitly, I because I enjoy running, I was not losing that strength, and you putting sort of like a label to it definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, you know, when you're coaching athletes, swimrun does have this team aspect, which, as you alluded to, it is a very interesting part of the sport. I think what really makes it stand alone in these sort of endurance adventure kind of racing. How do you coach that? How do you think about the team aspect in swimrun?
Well, I'm at the risk of speaking out of two sides of my mouth. The team aspect becomes. Let me preface this first. If someone comes to Purple Patch and wants in his swim running and wants coaching, I think that we have better coaches at Purple Patch around swim run. John Stevens being a great example than me, actually. Vastly more experience in the sport. So I don't want to come on the show and say, hey, swim run experts, this is how you should do it, and I know everything, because I don't think that's the case. So with the team component of it, I think that if you guys are a team, and Chris is a really strong runner, and Chipper's a really strong swimmer, there is a component where obviously we want to ensure that Chris is doing his homework on the swim. This is where we come out to try and level set that side of it. At the same time, there's never going to be a place where you're chasing equilibrium or balance or the same output. And so it's so difficult. The reason I'm challenging myself to try and answer this, I think one of the mistakes is for teams to try and chase having two athletes that are as strong as each other in both disciplines. And that's just simply never going to be the case. And so it layers on to be tactical in how you're actually applying it on the race. So I don't know if I'm answering your question there.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I mean the tactical piece of it, and this is something that, you know, Chipper and I have definitely experienced and actually Brad was talking about this when we had him on recently, was you have to come down to whoever's the weakest in whatever thing. So if Chipper's a super strong swimmer, that's not helpful unless he wants to be pulling, you know, the entire time. So he needs to come down a little bit. Same thing on the run. Like I need to kind of step back a little bit so that we can progress tactically together as quickly as possible. Is that what you see?
Yeah, I also liked how you put it on when you were talking about the solo training, about kind of exploiting your strengths, and how can you as a team have those tactics during the race, whether it be certain legs or throughout the whole race, about, hey, Chris is going to take the charge on the runs and I'll take the charge on the swims, and really leaning into those areas. And
Exactly.
if I do have more to give on the run, or Chris has more to give on the swim, then we can really lean into Chris's run fitness and push harder on those pieces. So I do like the exploiting your bits.
There's also another thing that's interesting, and this might be good news for Chris to hear, but there's another element to this that I think is really powerful that many people forget, which is the sport itself is swim run. It's not swimming and running, in the same way that triathlon is swim, bike, run. And one of the potent and really valuable components of swimming is that your ability to hit high intensity in training and recover quicker is much greater than running, that is obviously weight bearing, more than 2 times your body weight going into the ground every step, etc. So therefore really corrosive. So a lot of the runners, the more pure runners, are really worried about, I'm going to lose my run form, I'm going to lose my running. And in fact, it's relatively easy for a good runner to leverage gains by just putting running on a back burner a little bit, really focusing on swimming. And the conditioning that occurs with swimming tends to cross-pollinate really well to run. And so when we think about a multi-sport athlete, in triathlon, if I expand it out, like the swim cross-pollinates into the bike a little bit and the run a lot, the bike into the run. Swim run is the very same, where you can actually leverage swimming as a tool, not just to improve your swimming, but also to improve your running. It doesn't mean you don't have to run, but it's actually a really potent effect. And that's something that we use, with some of our more elite runners that we have, people that are chasing very fast marathon times. We always deploy a multi-sport approach to running. And even some of the elite professional runners now are looking outside of just running as a discipline, because the challenge of running training is that to do the miles necessary to achieve the performance gains has a high risk of injury. And so how can we leverage other tools to get cardiovascular conditioning, particularly high intensity stuff, and some of the muscular endurance without it being weight bearing? It's just a small point for swim runners that I think is important.
Yeah, and like you said, the sport is swim run. It's one event, and we found in some of our races where maybe the fitness has been mismatched, we've been able to out swim run teams that were faster at running and faster at swimming than us, because we did it all together as a more fluid bit. And then that's sort of one area that we really feel like we made a big leap forward in recent times. But another one, and you mentioned the free performance enhancers of sleep. I feel like that's becoming the big hot topic, kind of like buzzword in the wellness sort of space. But it is pretty. The science is there, and the data is there. But how are you focusing your athletes to make sure they're getting fully recovered? Obviously, there's a fueling, eating portion, and then the recovery and the sleep.
Yeah, on the fueling and eating, most endurance athletes, particularly the sort of slightly more committed, sort of serious endurance athletes, the vast majority are under fueling and under eating to support training demands. That's the blunt truth. I would say the Purple Patch Pros, when they were incoming, so in other words, when they first arrived, I would say 8 out of 10 of them were not eating enough calories to support their training demands. So proper fueling approaches, I think, are really important. That's a hidden gem. Sleep, and it is the buzz topic at the time. In fact, now they have sleep hygiene. That sounds fantastic, doesn't it? It's something special. But as it relates to sleep, there is some actually really interesting and valuable practical advice around sleep. So we care about 2 things. We care about the duration of sleep. We care about the quality of sleep. And in a pure, without thinking about disruptors, and let's just think about someone living about their daily life, I think there are a few things that can help. to really leverage good quality sleep. Just like training, consistency is key. So what you tend to do on a daily basis is important. And we shouldn't expect, I like athletes to take the emotional, judgmental side of sleep out of it. So a lot of folks wear wearables, Oura rings or Whoop bands, and they get up in the morning, did I pass or fail? That's not really it. It's these wearables are really interesting on a longitudinal basis, but they're not pass fail. It's not a big deal if you have a bad night's sleep that's disrupted. The key is that you're putting your best foot forward to consistently rejuvenate. So there are some tricks to it. Try not to have a big meal too close to bedtime. So having your last meal and then having 2 or 3 hours before you go to sleep is going to positively impact sleep quality. So that's one thing. Trying to go to bed at a similar time most nights is valuable. So having, just like we were when we were kids, having a bedtime, that's actually quite valuable. Appreciating that if you're a night owl or a morning lark, appreciating that one thing, that there is a physiological difference. I tend to be a morning lark, other people are a night owl. But the truth is that our deep sleep, different phases, different types of sleep you go through, our deep sleep where a lot of the adaptations occur and a lot of the deep rejuvenation occur, the deep sleep tends to occur between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. It doesn't matter if you're a night owl or not. So with that in mind, if you tend to go to bed at midnight, you're compromising your adaptations from your training. That's just the blunt truth of it. And so just bear that in mind. And then beyond that, really simple stuff. Cool environment, dark environment, avoiding screens for 30 to 60 minutes before, going to bed and reading a paperback rather than looking at your phone. Really simple things like that. And over the course of time, it really can be a huge positive impact on your daily energy, the results from training, etc. I'll say one more thing as well. And this is a shift that is very slowly occurring in the corporate world. In the middle of the day, again, hopefully around the same time each day, but somewhere between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. when we tend to get a little bit tired, maybe after lunch, if you have the opportunity to just have a little bit of downtime, somewhere between, and I'm going to sound funny when I say this, 7 minutes and 15 minutes, but just where you can lie down or even sit in a comfortable chair, no screens, and shut your eyes. You don't have to fall asleep. You shouldn't feel that pressure, but just allow the body to rejuvenate. We get a big growth hormone spike that helps with adaptations. It energizes us for several hours afterwards, so productivity in the afternoon is better, and it improves your quality of sleep. Now, if you start to sleep for 30 or 60 minutes, that's going to interrupt quality of sleep. But actually, middle of the day, those little naps, if you want to call them that, those are performance enhancers as well and very valuable.
I'm going to tell that
Hold
to
on.
my...
Yeah, let me just get on to the boss.
Exactly.
Tell Chipper's boss.
You want to work at Purple Patch. I encourage you to go and lie down and have a nap.
Coming back to Purple Patch a little bit, I think one of the really exciting things that the Purple Patch has done in the last 3 or 4 years, you've opened this center in San Francisco, which is now sort of like the, basically Mecca.
Endurance hub.
It's like the triathlon training Mecca. Tell us a little bit about this center and how it's been going.
I appreciate you saying 3 or 4 years because it was several years getting it done, and then I'm sitting in here now, and it's an exquisite place. But it was ready to open in April 2020, and so for 2 years it was the biggest thorn in Kelly and I's side. Kelly, my wife, that runs Purple Patch with me, because we were seeing a lot of money going out the bottom of Purple Patch without the opportunity to open it. But we just opened it a couple of months ago, and it really has 3 roles for us, to be honest. It's sort of the antithesis of a gym or a fitness club. It's obviously the home base for us, our operations, Purple Patch. It's also a great destination for fitness enthusiasts, performance-minded folks, triathletes, endurance athletes to come and train and get services. We have some fantastic supporting partnerships with SMI, the Sports Medicine Institute. They do orthopedic massage and athletic training. We do bike fitting with Ivan O'Gorman's team, the preeminent sort of bike fitters in the country, if not the world. And we have, I think, Andy Blow from Precision Hydration. We do.
Big fan.
Very, very helpful for endurance athletes and consulting around that. But more importantly, we have small group coaching. So everything we do, it's really the expression of everything that Purple Patch is. And what I mean by small group coaching is we don't do group fitness classes. We have small group coaching where athletes are getting structured and progressive training with feedback and guidance. And it's in person. There's bike sessions, there's standalone strength sessions, there's treadmill and strength circuits, which are really fun and really valuable. And it's certainly not just for triathletes. In fact, triathletes are the minority here. It's just people that want to improve is the truth, and are really frustrated with their cycle of failures, the plateaus that they get with group fitness, etc. But perhaps the most fun of the center globally is that we design the whole space as a center of production. So the third element of this is that folks, Shoutout Production, so far as I'm in the production room here, where we generate our podcasts and our video content, we do a lot of education. And so the acoustics on this show are probably pretty good with me because I'm in an acoustic box right now. But we also have video-based coaching, video-based strength sessions, video strength bike sessions. So yesterday morning when I was coaching my session, we had 20 people in the room live. And we had 50 people that were in Denmark, London, New York, Kansas, Chile, a guy from Singapore, an Australian, all live. And it's two-way video. So not only can they see myself and the participants in the class, and I can coach them, but I can see them. And that enables me to, A, give them feedback, but also, mentally abuse them as well, which is always really fun and makes it a really fun, connected experience.
I can definitely attest to that. And then when you're in these classes, there's sometimes like, do I want Daddy's eye on me today? Where should I go hide in the corner so he doesn't see me? But inevitably, he spots the people trying to hide.
I have two eyes that go different directions. I want to point out, by the way, some people would be very uncomfortable being labeled daddy, but I embrace it.
Awesome, Matt. Well, I think Mike O's top Purple Patch coach downloads get is at risk. This has been a tremendous episode with you, and we really thank you for taking the time. And yeah, if you're in the Bay Area on a regular basis, definitely check out the Purple Patch Performance Center. Great Purple Patch podcast. And if you're looking for obviously really excellent coaching, no better place than we can recommend than Purple Patch. So,
and if folks would like to come and give it a crack, if you mention the Low Tide Boyz podcast, the first coach session is on me. I'd love to invite any listeners to be my guest, and we can go out for a coffee afterwards if we have time, or at least have a coffee in the lobby with our very nice coffee machine. So first. Nice. First session will be on me and on Purple Patch. You're welcome to come and give it a crack and reach out to us. It's info at Purple Patch Fitness. Just mention the show and you'll be my guest.
Well, thank you so much. And when you're down there, get a sweat test so you can get your, find out what your sweat rate is too. Before you get your 1,500 or 11,000 or whatever you are. But
yeah, awesome.
Matt, again, thank you for your time, and maybe you and Mike maybe we'll pair you guys up, get you smashing around in Portland, Maine.
Yeah, we got wetsuits for you. We got everything you need to get out there.
You know what? Mike's a whippet, and I run like a donkey dipped in cement. So maybe talk about strengths and weaknesses. I can't think of a better few hours than being tied to Mike Olzinski. Goodness me, what more can a man dream of?
Awesome, all right, on that, it's been great. Thanks again, Matt.
Appreciate you.
Cheers. Take care, guys.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swimrun activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Other stuff.
Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run,
Then another swim.
then another run,
And then another swim.
and then another run.
And then just keep going until you're done.
So you're done. Or maybe can't
And then
stop, won't stop.